Hola a todos, soy Pamela de Asian Boss. ¿Sabías que tan solo un 2% de los bebés recién nacidos en Japón son mixtos? Es un hecho que Japón es una de las sociedades étnica y culturalmente más homogéneas del mundo, con un 98% de su población siendo considerada étnicamente japonesa. Anteriormente hablamos con un grupo de japoneses mixtos, también conocidos como Hafu, para conocer sus experiencias y dificultades. Pero esta vez hablamos con la ex Miss Mundo Japón, Priyanka Yoshikawa, quien es la primera mujer, mitad india y mitad japonesa, en ganar la competencia en 2016. Este resultado no fue muy bien recibido por algunos, así que le preguntamos cómo ha cambiado la actitud de los japoneses frente a los Hafu y también qué está haciendo ella para promover la diversidad en su país. Conozcamos su historia.
Thank you so much for sitting down with us today, Priyanka. From our understanding, you are the first half Indian and half Japanese to win the Miss World Japan in 2016. But for our international audience who are not as familiar with you, can you give us a brief introduction?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for having me today. I'm Priyanka Yoshikawa, and like you said, I did win Miss World Japan in 2016, and I was the first biracial to win it. My age right now is currently 27, so I won the title when I was 22. And I'm currently the CEO of Esta company, where we produce products, CBD-based products for skincare and supplements and all those, lifestyle brands.
As you mentioned, it's been 5 years since you won the Miss World Japan title. How has things changed for you? Do you think people still, recognize you? How big was this title for you?
I would say in 2016, it was more happening, I guess. I got interviewed a lot because I was the first biracial for Miss World, and that made me become more, I guess, getting involved myself in more public speaking and those sort of things. And then, starting a business as well. So people do still recognize me because I am on TV and I do those work still. But not like, you turn on the TV and, I'm on the interviews every day. It was a very boost up of my career because I was just a model for like 5 years. And then, I was on campaigns and those things, but I never really had a voice. I always wanted to have a voice, but I never really had that until I won the title. I talk a lot about, Hafus living in Japan, and I still take in those interviews like today as well. But so that's like my core, I guess like a topic that I still continue to talk about because I feel there is still a huge need in Japan, and not just Japan, but diversity and all these things is a very international topic that we are focused on.
Well, so before we talk about the beauty pageant, you have a very unique background. You're half Indian and half Japanese. Is this quite, I guess, rare in Japan?
I think so. Like, I don't have a lot of friends that are Indo-Japanese mix. I do have a couple of friends that are like Bangladesh mixed or Pakistan, but not really a lot of Indian.
Yeah, but how did your parents meet since, I guess, one is Japanese and the other is...
My dad always wanted to go overseas, and he was a huge fan of Japan. I never really asked why, but he was planning to go to Germany or Japan, and he chose Japan. And then he didn't speak the language, so he started to go to community school at the same time go to like a normal college or something. And then my mom had a part-time job teaching Japanese at the community school, and she wasn't the teacher for his class, but they met in that school, and then I guess they just kicked it off and they got married, and then they had me.
Did they ever tell you if that kind of international marriage was difficult back in the days? Like people would say like, oh, like you're not supposed to get married.
My father's side was absolutely fine, but my mom's side was a little bit against her getting married to my father. I don't know if the only reason was because he was a foreigner, or I think it had to do something with it. But I mean, they got married after all. So my mom loves India. She's been traveling to India before even she got married to my dad, or like before she met him. So for her, cultural difference was not an issue. But living in Japan with a foreign husband did give her issues because for her it wasn't an issue, but just as living in Japan, it was really hard to get a place to rent because in a foreign name.
Even when she is Japanese.
Yeah. Recently, it's not a problem, but like 20, 30 years ago, it was very hard.
Because
Like,
you change your family name?
it's not just about my mom, it's because you rent it through your father's, my dad's name or something, right? Because you,
Right.
in the family. So, because we're in Japan, you can't get married in a different surname. If you go in to like a real estate office, they're like, oh no, like they don't even talk to you. That's what my mom said. Like she went to multiple places and they rejected before even asking, or like before even they were able to say, okay, we want to, rent these kind of places. So I guess like if you come from a very high-end place, it's not much of an issue because a company is backing up you. But my dad wasn't that, so it was very hard. So those things did happen.
Why do you think they were so like against foreigners even just renting a house?
Japan has been very closed country, right? It's an island. Even we only have 2% of biracial kids every year. That just proves how much it's still very closed. And we have a lot of foreigners coming in. We have a lot of biracials, but when you compare it to, let's say, the States, or it's very different. I'm not saying the States is great and Japan is not. It's not that part to compare, but Japan was like they're not really used to it. And if you follow the history, like it's not. Like even the word hafu comes from a very racist place. Like I don't try to use the word hafu when I speak in Japanese. I use it mixed or double because hafu is actually means that you're less than a human because you're
Half of a human.
yeah, Japanese blood. If you're 100%, you're human, but if you're not, it's hafu. So it means all those things. So when you think about that, not being able to rent a place and those, it's not of them. They don't realize that they're doing something very racist because Japan is very under the carpet.
Your dad is Indian, your mom is Japanese, and you've grew up. Where have you been growing up?
I was born in Tokyo, and then I went to the States when I was in elementary.
Oh, okay.
And then I spent about a year in India as well, and I came back to Japan when I was like 11 or 10, I think.
And then you've been in Japan?
Yeah, since then, yeah.
Wow. So because you speak English so fluently, and obviously you speak Japanese as well. I guess, what other languages do you speak?
I hope I can say, but I speak Bengali, but it's very poor lately. Like, because I didn't really study Bengali. I was just living in India when I was 9, and I just picked it up. So it's very, let's say, like a very casual Bengali, I guess, elementary level. But yeah, but I can understand and everything in there. And then for Hindi, I don't really speak, so mainly it's 3 languages.
Wow, that's a lot. When you came back to Japan, you said at the age of 11 was
Yeah, I think it was like 11.
And then you just, went into a local school. How was that like for you?
It was very different. I was the only hafu in my school, and I didn't speak as good Japanese than I speak now. I couldn't read and write. So that was the main thing for me. I couldn't read and write, but I'm studying in Japanese. So, and then the teachers will ask me to read, the books, but I'm like, I can't read the kanji, the Chinese characters. So I'll have to ask every single time. And then I don't think that was the actual reason that I got bullied, but it did make some of the reasons, for me to stick out in a way. And then I'm brown, so I have dark skin than other people in my class. Let's say you were me and I bumped into you on the hallway, or I accidentally touched you or whatever. I'll wipe it, my classmates will wipe it. So it's I'm just breathing and I'm just living and trying to enjoy my life, and I'm treated like a germ, and I'm like, hello, I am very clean. So yeah, I got bullied having a foreign dad. I really feel horrible that I felt that way once in my life, but I was a little bit, not shy, but I felt like, oh, I don't want my dad to come to school, you know, because I didn't want people to think that I was more weirder or whatever it was at that time. And then if it's like free seating class, nobody will sit with me. And the teacher will come up and she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, what kind of a teacher are you? You know? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. Like, you know, it's like, why can you not notice what kind of a situation I'm at when the teacher is in their 30s and I'm still like 11, you know? And she comes or he comes to me and asks me, are you okay? And then if I was a teacher, I would probably stop that system and, you know, from next week. But she'll continue to do that. So I'll always sit alone. You know?
Is it because she was not aware, or she just didn't want to?
She doesn't want to deal with it. They didn't want to deal with it. So nobody helped me, and then I kind of gave up on telling my parents as well because I didn't want them to get involved. So I just kept it with me for a year.
So your parents didn't know that you were bullied?
They didn't.
Wow, how were you able to hide it so well from them? I mean...
I just pretended. They didn't know anything. I was like, oh yeah, those are all my friends. It's very typical for a kid to get being bullied, to say that. But specifically, if I say more details, these 3 kids, I think my classmate said, like, for me to die or something. And it was a sign language, so I didn't realize. And my classmate that was sitting behind me was like, Priyanka, I think they're saying like die in sign language. And I'm like, really? Like, why would I die for a stranger, you know? Like, I'm not, and it didn't make sense at all. And I didn't feel like I was getting bullied at that time. I just felt like I was I felt as an outsider, but I wasn't feeling I was bullied. And then I go back to home and I was like, Mom, you know, like what happened to me today? It was really awkward. Like, I don't get it, but apparently, like, I forgot the sign language, but this means die. And they were doing it to me. And my mom's like, what? And she's like, give me their names and their number. And then she just calls them and she's like, what kind of an education or a household do you have? And I saw that. So I knew that my mom or my dad is gonna like, oh, I don't know what level he's gonna go into if he knew that I was getting bullied. So I wanted him to be out. And then, but I knew my mom was gonna be very mad as well. She gets obviously emotional about for me, right? I'm her daughter. But that never really changed the situation. It will be changed in that moment when my mom is talking to the parent and the kid, and the kid will be like, oh, I'm sorry, but I didn't mean that. I didn't do that. Everybody will be friendly in that moment, but at school, they're not. So I knew that even if I told my parents, nothing is gonna change. So that was that. But I talked about this in my TED Talk, but they actually wasted a great amount of years in my life, because that full year of me getting bullied, like, I should have not, you know, given up on things, you know. I should have had a really nice school life, but I didn't. I wasted my lifetime through a third person, right? And then that still affects me, because even though I'm 27, having that experience still frightens me sometimes, you know, in ways of thinking. So
how?
It'll be like if somebody is like whispering or something, let's say, you know, it feels like they're talking about me. Or
what do you think they're talking about?
Something that has to do with disliking me, I guess, because it's like, even though I can express myself more, and I'm obviously talking about all of these things for years, just as a mindset, it does deep down, like, if you say something harsh to somebody, it might not affect you as much as you are affecting the person that was told. So a lot of kids that go through, you know, getting bullied, it stays with them, a scar deep down. So it just, you know, in ways it can like flashback, I guess, you know.
As you kind of move, you know, continue your study in Japan, did the issue just kind of got better with time?
Yeah, it did get better with time, but I did still struggle a little bit in high school, but not about bullying or anything. It was just more of the Japanese education system that I couldn't really deal with. I'm like, why can't I dye my hair? Like, you know, it's like, why do I have to wear navy socks that I have to buy at school, like all these little things, like how does that affect to my education? Like, and I had all these questions, and I was like, because my personality was going back to normal again, because I was like pressing it for 2 years or 3, and then high school, boom, I'm like, I'm back, like this is me. So yeah, I did struggle a little bit, and then I started working in the entertainment industry, so it was like very easy for me. Yeah.
So despite your experiences in Japan as a child, you competed in the Miss World Japan in 2016. What made you decide to attend the competition?
Oh, well, I never thought that I was going to compete in a beauty pageant. I knew about Miss World because it's very big in India, but Japan is not a beauty pageant, like huge on beauty pageants, compared to other countries and even just in Asia as well. So I never thought about it, and even my parents were like, like it's Miss Japan. Like, I think, not saying that you're not enough, like you're absolutely great, but like just for that title, I think it's more of like being fully Japanese girls, because nobody actually won it, right? And then I was in Tokyo Fashion Week, and I met the organization, a guy that was scouting for Miss World Japan, and he was like, you should compete. And I'm like, really? Like, really? I'm like, do you realize, I'm biracial? Like, is that fine? He's like, yeah, it's fine. You should. And I was like, okay, let me think about it. And I wanted to be in the entertainment industry and be successful in it, but not just, being on print ads. Like, I wanted to have a voice. I wanted to have some sort of influence through all the work that I do. And so I thought a beauty pageant might be a good way to start that. And I competed, and then at first I thought it was like, oh, first runner-up is enough, and then I competed, and I'm like, oh, no, if you're gonna do it, you need to aim for number 1, and then luckily I was able to become.
Did you tell your parents when you were gonna compete, or you just kind of like send in the registration and then see how it goes on your own and kept it a secret?
The latter one. I didn't tell my father until I became the finalist. I told my mom a little bit that I was going to compete, and then I didn't tell her much. And then I became the finalist, and then 2 weeks after, I called them and we were having lunch. My dad thought I was getting married because I was like, Dad, I have to tell you something.
Very important.
Yeah, very important. Like, you need to meet me for lunch. And then he's like, lunch, okay. And my mom comes, and I'm like, so Dad, like, he's always like, he's a little nervous that day. And I'm like, why are you so nervous? He's like, okay, so what's the topic? What do you need to talk about? You're not pregnant, right? I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm the finalist of Miss World Japan. He's like, oh my God, Miss World. Because for him, like, he knew all these.
He knew about it.
So, yeah. It was very exciting for them.
Essentially, you're half Indian, so you can probably compete for Miss. Oh, no?
No, because I don't have a nationality. And I don't have an Indian nationality.
Oh.
Yeah, I can only compete for Japan.
What were the key judging criteria for the competition?
So there's 5 categories that you always have to enter. Is like, there's a top model, so you do walking and, just modeling stuff. And then there's sports, and then charity, so the beauty with a purpose, and then social media, like the voting, and then talent. So for Miss World, it's usually instruments, singing, or dancing. I suck at all of those 3, so I didn't. I was like, I said I can't do it, but I can. For Japan, you can do something else, so I did that. So those 5 things, and then the rest of it is interviews. There's workshops every week or something, and then there's judges that have been judging how you are reacting to things, how you're, how you act with the other competitors. Every pageant has a cause. For Miss World, we have a slogan called Beauty with a Purpose. And I love it because, like, they all say, like, being beautiful, like, you guys are all beautiful. Like, and I mean, we all are. Like, even if you like your face or not, it's not about that. Everybody's beautiful and everybody is very valuable, and they should be valued. But just in the pageant, it's like, okay, you're a model, that's fine. I want to know, like, what you want to do in life. That's like the Miss World interviews. Like, they're like, okay, so what are you focused on? What's your purpose? Not just about the looks is really connected to the Miss World, though.
Interesting, because when we look at, like, let's say Miss Korea, there's very specific stereotype that people have, right? You need to be this skinny, you need to lose this much weight, which is usually, I guess, underweight. For things like that, do they have that kind of criteria for your competition as well, or?
They don't tell you upfront, but like, it's like nobody's really oversized, to be honest, you know. I mean, I lost like 6 pounds, not 6 pounds, 12 pounds. And then I regained it now, so I gained like 14 pounds. But yeah, like those things. So, I mean, I don't know if that's actually a great symbol that they're showing through beauty pageants of being fit and, you know, a certain way of being pretty. Because when it goes into diversity, it's not, right? I mean, why do you need to make a different category of a plus size beauty pageant? Why can't it be the same, you know? Why can't transgenders, you know, compete? Why can't, you know, these questions do come up because history, I mean, like just culture is changing and, you know, it's getting upgraded and renewed, you know? It's not like the olden days. So, but yeah, not as much as like how you said about Miss Korea.
Was there a specific key factor that you think made you win the competition?
I think I was able to speak well. My speech was very simple, but after like I won the title and I became a judge for certain pageants, I did realize you can't really be fake, you know. If you're gonna be fake, you have to be really good at it. And you can't just be very selfish. You can't say, I think I deserve this crown because I'm the best fit for it. You know, you have to say why you're so good for this, what you want to do, and like, and it doesn't have to be just for. You can't really say it for just beauty pageants. It's in general in life. Like you have to have that core, and as long as you, because all the answers are always inside of you, so you just have to meditate on them. Like you have to talk to yourself and get all those answers why you want to do it. And so I think the concentration that goes with it does change how you form things or how you say it. So the speech did really make an impact, I think, because I did get a lot of comments after I won the pageant. They're like, you know, your speech was like the best and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, so when you actually got the first prize, how did you feel? I mean, it was 5 years ago, so you might not remember, but if we go back to that time.
I had no idea what happened to me, to be honest. I was like, because how they did it was a little cruel. Like, it was 10, in a way, like top 10, right? So it's 10 girls. And usually it's like second runner-up, first runner-up, and then, you know, you win. For Miss World, for Japan, we had little different prizes, like top model. People are getting called, and then it was me or this other girl that a lot of people thought that was gonna win, and then they called my name, and then they called her name as well after, because if they announced the first run-up, so it was really confusing. And so I thought I wasn't gonna win anything, and then my name was called, and I'm like, really? Like, I was like, I really had no idea what happened to me. And then I was really awkward. So, I mean, I was really surprised in a good way. I was really happy because I felt that I deserved it, because I did put a lot of effort and energy and love into it. But yeah.
After you won the competition, what were people's reaction?
I got a lot of negative comments. At the same time, I got positive. I knew that it was gonna, you know, happen. You know, if I won it, I knew that I was gonna get some sort of backlashes and stuff, and which I did. But at the same time, I got a lot of good ones too. When I got comments, messages of saying that I was hope, because it showed them how Japan was changing. I mean, I got to know at that time, but a lot of parents or foreign families and living in Japan face some sort of anxiety, or they worry about their child, you know, going into school or living up in Japan as a foreign child or, you know, mixed race. So when they say, you know, it's hope and like we're really, you know, grateful, or, you know, those things, it really hit me. I was like, I didn't think I was gonna be thanked, you know, because when I was doing the pageant, it was not for, you know, to save biracial kids in Japan.
Right.
I didn't think that I would have that kind of a role to play in life. So that was really, you know, I mean, I got inspired by those. but the negative ones, I mean, it's just, not fully Japanese. Another one is like, just about like, body smell. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people, like Japanese people, if you stereotype it, have less body smell than compared to other countries. So for some reason they thought that there was like a comment of like that. It's like, oh, she's partly Indian, so maybe she has a strong body smell. That's like so rude. I'm like, come on, like come in front of me. Like,
Yeah.
I
And what
smell
does that
quite
have
nice.
to do with them?
Yeah. But something like that. Or it's just like those funny ones, My appearance as well, like for certain people, they don't like how I look, so they're like, oh, she's so ugly. Or, it's like if Miss Japan is going to be so exotic, like I want them to stop the pageant, like, it's like they're not, there's comments of like, okay, like personally I'm not against biracial, but for a pageant representing Japan, I want it to be purely Japanese. So if they're going to continue to choose people that are biracial, I would like them to stop doing Miss Japan pageants. Those things, it did happen. A lot of people are talking about what I am. And I'm like, you guys can think what I am. Like, you can define me, it's fine. But I define myself too. Yeah. So I took like 23andMe and I took a DNA test. And I was way more than just being Indian and Japanese. So I was like, if you want, if you want that, I can show it to you. But yeah, a lot of people didn't want, biracial as a Miss Japan.
How did you deal with those negative comments?
I didn't care at all.
But you still read them.
I read them because it doesn't bother me. That's the thing. It doesn't bother. Like, I mean, some of them, if they say like she's so ugly, I'm like, oh, that hurts. It happens. But like in ways like that, like I mean, it's still like I can joke around about it because I don't know them. A stranger is just talking on the internet. I mean, it's like, well, I mean, sorry that you're feeling that way, but there's a lot of people that support me, and I would love to love those people than the ones. But some of them can be like, it's not as negative. You can learn from some of them because they actually say, oh, how she phrased this is like in ways for me living in Japan and being very domestic. That mindset wasn't there, so when she says it like this, it hurts in this, those things are like something that I can learn.
In general, how do you think the Japanese people see hafu people?
I guess there is always a filter of me being hafu, or there are certain things that, let's say like I will dress a little bit like revealing in a way or something, but it's fine because I'm a hafu.
Okay, so that's something good about being a hafu.
Yeah, if you're a hafu, you're kind of like a gaijin, so it's okay. Like they were like, oh no, but she's a hafu, so like bear with it or something like that. So I guess you can kind of go a little bit outside the norm.
Would they expect that you speak English or like...
Yeah. So Ariana, right, from Miss Universe, and we're friends. So Ariana and I and her husband now, her husband is from Hong Kong. So he looks more very Asian than us. And we were at a restaurant and we get English menus and he gets a Japanese menu, but he doesn't really speak good Japanese. And we're like,
we're the Japanese
we're the Japanese, he's the foreigner. So I guess like it's just, a filter that without even thinking. So sometimes I'm speaking in Japanese, but a waiter will speak to me in English. And I'm like, no, I'm speaking Japanese. Like,
so that still happens?
It does happen, yeah.
Wow. Do you feel like things have been changing in Japan also in the past few years?
Definitely I do feel little by little. Japan takes a lot of time to change. It does have to do a lot with history. The older ages weren't really used to hafus or international. Japan becoming more international, I guess. But our generation doesn't they don't even think about it as much, right? Like they're open to it. More likely they want to study overseas or it's more easier to go. So I think in ways like in the modern days, it's changing more and it's accepting. It's just the gap between, I guess, the older generation, maybe the politicians, because Japan, most of the politicians are very old. So what they say and how our generation says are very different, I think. Because we're kind of going into an era where It's really not about nationality or countries. It's more of like coexisting, coming together, oneness, you know. It's not separating. That's like going against where we're supposed to actually be heading.
It's been 5 years
Yes.
since you won the beauty pageant. What have you been up to?
I established 2 companies in this 5 years. I started
2?
Yeah, I started my first company when my reign ended as Miss Japan. It was always just something that I chose in a very young age. I was going to become a model. I was going to go in the entertainment industry, and I was going to start a company before 25, and then I was going to, that was like my life plan. So I just followed a life plan that I decided in a very young age, like 15 or something.
Wow.
But I just don't want to sell a random product, I want to sell something that I feel connected to, and I have a message that I want to showcase and I want to spread and influence through it. And then it led me to the brand that I have called Mikomi, but it's under a company called Esta Company, and yeah, I've been running it for 2.5 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about the company?
Oh, yeah. One of our brand is called Mikomi, and we're trying to develop start a new brand. So, but Esta Company, our company is based around CBD and hemp, and our brand story is dedicated to diversity. So we have a really beautiful brand story, but we are introducing CBD products now. And I thought, Japan is a very workaholic country as well. We need more Zen power. So I thought CBD is a great match for Japan. And I had a lot of breakouts, and CBD products really helped me. And I was looking into Japan, and CBD was legal. So I was like, okay, but there's not really so many CBD skincare. Skincare is a personal time of taking care of your skin, and it's, you're actually raw, like it's taking care of yourself. And I always thought diversity does connect to self-love and self-acceptance and coexisting with others. So to coexist, you need to love yourself first. Otherwise, you can't really love others.
CBD itself, it's legal in
Yes.
Japan. But I guess why is it not that accepted yet in Japan then?
Well, there's a lot of legal issues. Well, CBD comes from the hemp plant, right? Or there is CBD in marijuana as well. Japan is very, very hardly against weed. So when the ingredient CBD comes from it, it does go under the law of drugs. So just CBD itself is legal, but there are a lot of restrictions that you have to follow. And just in Japan, the community in Japan itself is against weed, right? Because we've been partly brainwashed a little bit and partly educated that weed is dangerous. So think about if a CBD is coming from that category of a plant, a lot of people get scared. So I think it's just a lack of education around that plant.
So you mentioned that until 25, you wanted to definitely have a business. So now you have a business. What's after this?
So I definitely want to grow the brand more. I want people to know about our brand story as well as the product, because we're selling products. And we have amazing skincare. And I really can say it from, not just because it's my brand, it's actually everybody's brand, but we've got really good feedback. So I want to grow more internationally. I want our philosophy, our vision, and our mission to be a lot of people's, and we want to build that community more. And then when the community grows, we want to have more events, like mindfulness events, retreats, yoga programs, to actually more communicate with the community. So that's one that I want to grow. But in my before I go into my mid-30s, planning to start another business that involves hopefully children. I said a little bit briefly before earlier today that I never really thought about the Beauty with a Purpose kind of project going into business. So I wouldn't really say it's going to be a business that is formed to get profit, but to regenerate that into like a cause, because you need actually money to do a lot of things.
So you've always been mentioning like diversity or kind of tackling stereotypes. Is there a specific mission that you have in mind that tackles a specific social issue?
Just for diversity, it's very big in a way, because it's a global keyword. It's not just about Japan, or it's not just about Tokyo, or it's something that I think all us humans need to realize, that we're all different. And we've been saying that for years and years, like we're all different, we're unique, we're good, we need, self-love and love yourself first. And those things, we've been saying it, but we've been continuing to say it because we still need to say it, because things haven't changed the way or faster enough that we want it to change. But for me to change a huge amount of population or a country, I don't know if that's like possible in my lifetime, but I want to share what I can share in my experience and what I feel, and influence the people that are, dealing with identity issues, or people that are, facing obstacles about, not being able to love themselves or coexist, or just not being able to be comfortable being themselves and just living, because life is super simple. Like, you have to be happy. We need to be loved, and we deserve all of that.
For our younger viewers who might be experiencing similar things that you've experienced, what is the message that you would want to share with them?
The younger generation, well, I would love to learn more, because, they have different ideas. They're really open to a lot of things, and I can learn so much from the younger generation. But I hope that they don't get too influenced by the old patterns. I hope that they can, make the new era, or, develop more and make good footprints. But for that to happen, I think our generation and the generations before need to open the doors and keep them open, and not just, have them face the same obstacles. So we all face fear when we want to do new things, or we want to challenge. But if you feel fear, I think it's worth trying and betting on that, because that's a lot of potential there to change the future. So be fearless as well.